What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mags. This is your match preview for the game against Brighton down at the Amex this coming Saturday. And of course, it's a 5:30 kickoff down there at the Amex down in Sussex. And of course, we're going to this game 11 games into the season now, with this game, of course, included in that. So 10 games without a win in the Premier League so far this season for Newcastle. And I've got to say, we need to start picking up the wins. We need to start getting some sort of momentum going away from this relegation zone, because we're 10 games in. We haven't had a win yet. 4 draws, 6 losses. We've got 4 points out of a possible 30, which isn't great. Things definitely need to move around. And of course, there's a big change going on at the club at the moment. We've got the brand new owners that's only been in for a little while now. We've finally gotten rid of the tyrant that was running the club. We've finally gotten rid of the cabbage that was in the dugout. And to be honest, we've got Graham Jones, a local lad who is trying his best, I would say. But to be honest, looking at the way he's lined up the team in the past 2 games that he's took charge of as caretaker manager, he hasn't done great. Now, you could give him the benefit of the doubt on the first one against Crystal Palace, because there wasn't much time really to turn things around. But on the Chelsea game, he had a bit more time to turn things around, and he didn't really do much, to be honest. We sat back in that game far too much on defence. We should have just went at them. At the end of the day, it was a write-off game, in my opinion, anyway, for that one. And if we had have just went at them, it would have possibly ended in the same result, or we could have possibly come away from that Chelsea game with a point. But we're not talking about them games now. We're talking about the Brighton game. We can't do anything about the Palace or the Chelsea game, as they're now done and dusted. But we'll look at the course ahead to this game against Brighton on Saturday, 5:30 kickoff down at the Amex. And looking at Brighton going into this game, of course, we'll look at Brighton first, then we'll talk about Newcastle. Looking at Brighton first going into this game, Danny Welbeck, Stephen Hazard remain out, while Dan Burn is doubtful. The Seagulls are on a winless run in their last 5 Premier League outings, drawn all but one of those games. On home territory, they began with a 2-0 win over Watford before losing by that same margin at Everton, defeating Leicester City 2-1. Then they were held 0-0 by Arsenal before going down 4-1 to Manchester City. So they aren't doing too good in the season, to be honest, but they're still in 8th place. They've got 16 points out of a possible 30, so they're doing a lot better than what we are doing, of course. And I'm sure they will be looking for to get a win in this game. They'll be hoping it'll be an easy game for them, especially with the way our results have been going of late and how our season's been playing out of late. But looking at us going into the game, Matt Ritchie has 4 bookings to his name and is consequently 1 away from serving a 1-game ban. So hopefully, if Matt Ritchie does play in this game, which I don't know if he will, but there is a big chance that he will play in the game, because Graham Jones has been playing Matt Ritchie at that left back. So has the Cabbage before him been playing him at that left wing back position, and of course a defensive 5, which we've seen quite a bit under the Cabbage and now under Jones, which is very negative football in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the back 5. I like to see we attack, and I like to see we bang in more goals than the other guy. That's always been a good approach by Newcastle. That was the approach by Kevin Keegan during the 90s, and it always produced entertaining football and beautiful football, bang in more goals than the other guy. That is pretty much the best philosophy you can have, especially with the way our team is set up at the moment, where attack is absolutely amazing, but with defence is absolute dog shit, to be honest. Since the Cabbage came in, he absolutely ruined the team that Rafa Benitez had built. were defensively sound under Rafa Benitez, and then in come the cabbage, and he's just completely rotted it all away. What Rafa Benitez had built, and now Jones is pretty much just going along with the same game plan as what that cabbage had, and it's not great. We definitely need a new manager in. We looked like we were going to get Unai Emery in, but that all went to pot. Now it looks like it's going to be Eddie Howe. Is the dead-on favourite at the moment to get the job. I absolutely love Eddie Howe, to be honest. He's a really good manager. He proved himself at Bournemouth. He took them from League One football all the way up to the Premier League, kept them in the Premier League for quite a while, and then eventually, the whole pandemic unfortunately hit, and that affected Bournemouth in the league. It also affected other stuff, around the world, of course, but that affected Bournemouth in the league. That cost Eddie Howe his job because players like, Ryan Fraser, who's actually at Newcastle now, didn't want to play. He decided he didn't want to play, so we'll have to see what happens moving forward, but it looks like it's going to be Graham Jones taking charge of the Brighton game, in my opinion, unless we can get Eddie Howe in beforehand. But, there's not much time to get him in, I don't think. But if we can, then, of course, you would expect to see maybe Eddie Howe take charge of that game against Brighton. But if not, then, like I say, it's going to be Graham Jones once again. Hopefully he does a better job than he did in the game against Crystal Palace. Yes, we might have got a point, but we could have won that game if we had have pushed at them a little bit harder. The Chelsea game, we were more than likely going to lose, but if we had have pushed, who knows, we might have been able to pick up a draw. But looking at the previous times we've played Brighton in the Premier League, of course, the 2020-21 season, last season we lost 3-0 to them at the Amex. The season before that, we drew 0-0. The season before that, in the 18-19 campaign, we drew 1-1. 17-18 campaign, we lost 1-0. And, of course, for our first win against them, well, our last win against them, was, of course, the 16-17 campaign, where it was a 2-1 win. It was Diame and Perez scoring down in the Championship. So we'll have to see what happens on Saturday. Hopefully we can get our first win under the bag and move on into that international break to then come back, where, of course, I believe we have some pretty easy-ish games after that. We've got Brentford after the international break. Then we've got Arsenal, Norwich, and then we head into the December period up against Burnley, Leicester, and the like. So now is the time to get a win. Now is the time before that international break to get some extra points on the board, push harder, get that first win of the season, and hopefully we'll get a brand new manager in after that international break, if not before this game against Brighton. Let us know your thoughts anyway down in the comments below. As always, remember, like, share, subscribe to 100% Marks, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, the lads.